This video is brought to you by MoviePalette.com and enter ROOM15 for 15% off of your palette. I knew I needed a palette cleanser. Well, welcome back to Room 237, back with another review as I continue my run through of films based on real life serial killers. And my last review was the first film that I've reviewed based on the serial killer, the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez from LA. And it was Uwe Lammel's 2009 piece of shit, Night Stalker. Which there have been 4 films based on Ramirez, 2 TV movies, 2 direct-to-video movies. One of the TV films is highly fictional, but loosely based. But like when I reviewed Uwe Lammel's BTK movie, I was like, I need a palette cleanser. I gotta see something of BTK that's actually good. And it was the same case with this, because this was worse than the BTK movie. Then I watched the TV film Hunt for the BTK Killer, and it was actually really, really good. Well, unfortunately, this is the only one I own that's based on Ramirez, but there are 2 films on YouTube. The 2002 direct-to-video film, and this one, 2016's The Night Stalker. Again, they're all called The Night Stalker. Which, yes, is a Lifetime movie, and was put on some streaming service. I'm not sure which one, so there's no DVD of it, but it was for free on YouTube, thankfully. So I got to see it, and I'm glad. This was a good movie. Very different. It's not exactly what I was expecting, because I thought it was just going to be a well-made, maybe TV movie. I knew it was going to take place present day, 2013, maybe have some flashbacks. But really, it's sort of Silence of the Lambs meets Night Stalker. You have this fictional story, this fictional interview with this fictional lawyer going to meet Ramirez for her own reasons. And through their mentionings and flashbacks, we kind of get the gist of the Night Stalker story. This is not a film I could say, hey, if you want to learn about the Night Stalker, check this out. Which is really frustrating, because I think there's 4 different actors as far as age range: 5, 12, high school, 24, 25 during the killing spree, and 53. And from 12 on, those 3 actors look great in the part. They're very convincing, which Lou Diamond Phillips plays Ramirez at age 53. He does a really good job. It just says Richard Ramirez. Benjamin Barrett, I'm guessing, is him, during his killing spree. He looks just like him. I mean, the pictures of him with short hair, like during his arrest, he looks just like the real Night Stalker. And then the kids also look like him. And the flashbacks, those are the highlights of the film. And it is kind of portrayed like a Silence of the Lambs. She wants to get information, and he's kind of toying with her. I mean, he is hailing Satan and kind of saying the typical stuff that you would expect Ramirez to say. Maybe a bit more of like a Hannibal Lecter psychological edge to it, rather than, blurting obscenities or anything like that. It does have some historical accuracy, but the writer-director, Megan Griffiths, has called it historical fiction, which there is real stuff in there, but it's basically a fictional story built around this real event. So this isn't something like the other films that I've talked about, where you could go into it and really learn about the Night Stalker, which is kind of weird because in the credits it says it's based on the book by Philip Carlo, which is the definitive work on Ramirez. So when I saw that in the credits, I thought, oh, okay, this is going to be like a definitive movie about him. But not really. I mean, you get enough backstory to tell where he came from, when and where he started killing, a few scenes, flashbacks of him breaking in, how he killed. But the bulk of its 88-minute runtime is pretty much just these interviews and kind of this lawyer character kind of dealing with her demons. And being a Lifetime film, it is highly romanticized. You get the idea that she had a bad home life, especially with her stepdad, and she kind of fantasized about him as a teen because she was a teen when this was going on, and she kind of fantasized about him wanting to kill her stepdad, and her sexuality kind of formed or came to both because of her stepdad and because of stuff she was seeing on TV. It does play on the whole hybristophilia that Ramirez was known to cause, which is the philia, this fetish, I guess you could say, of criminals, or specifically killers. But even though it's not what you would call a serial killer biopic, it's still well made, especially for a TV movie, especially for a Lifetime TV movie. It's still very well made, well acted, well shot. The scene that the director Griffiths did say that the one scene they wanted to get right, and it is presented very well, quick and short but very well, is the scene of his capture, the El Matador scene, where he's spotted by the community, they're all chasing him. That was well done. But again, it stars Lou Diamond Phillips as age 53 Richard, Bellamy Young as Catherine, or Kit, who's this lawyer who grew up in the LA area during the Night Stalker killings. Cayenne Tran did the cinematography. St. Kilda did the music. It says distributed by A&E, but I think it was a Lifetime film. I mean, the watermark was down there the whole time. Premiered on June 4th, 2016, Seattle International Film Festival. Well, alright. It does jump around a lot between the time frames, but it doesn't. It kind of goes in sort of a linear way. Like, they'll talk about something, we'll get flashbacks to this murder, but for the most part, it does kind of start out when he was 5, and then show the story of his cousin Mike killing his wife in front of Richard. You get all that. It does have emphasis on him working at the hotel and using the pass key to steal and assault women. Only here it's like a seedy, tiny motel, where in real life it was a Holiday Inn. I'm not really going to go into the cliff notes on the history of Ramirez because unfortunately I wasted that on this film. But I guess real quick, born February 29th, 1960, El Paso, Texas. When he was 22, he moved to LA. At the age of 10, he started drinking, smoking weed, taking LSD in high school. He got really close with his cousin Mike, who was older. He was a Vietnam vet. He comes from a Christian family with an abusive father, but his cousin Mike would show him photos of women that he raped, tortured, killed, and decapitated, share stories about that with him, and that really enticed young Richard. That's where he came to sort of discover sex and violence and then intertwine them. And then one day when he was 13, Mike's wife, Jessie, was nagging at him about finding a job, so he shot her right in front of Richard. And he started developing more dark and violent sexual fantasies. He got a job at the Holiday Inn, where he would use the pass key to steal. He was also stealing in high school, but also to try to assault women. And then when he was 24, he started his Night Stalker attacks, where he was a killer where law enforcement could not, they thought it was all separate attacks because no victim profile. I mean, his victims ranged from 20s to their 80s. He would use handguns, tire irons, knives. He stomped one woman's head until she was dead. He shocked one of his victims. So no victim profile, bunch of different MOs and ways of killing that they didn't think there was any way it could be one person. But after his fourth victim, they saw the shoe print of his Avia or Avius, whichever one that is, shoe print, size 11 or 11 and a half, and the casings of a 22 caliber pistol. They realized it was all the same killer. And the name Night Stalker, they gave that to him, but it is similar to the AC/DC song Night Prowler, which was one of, if not his favorite songs. I forgot to mention my review for that is, apart from Satanism, which he also got from his cousin Mike, he also had a love for heavy metal music. AC/DC being his favorite band, Highway to Hell, Night Prowler being his favorite songs. I have seen letters of him writing to like Rolling Stone and stuff like that, putting all these like pussy bands like bring back AC/DC. So Night Prowler being one of his favorite songs, and Night Stalker became his moniker. By the early morning of August 31st, 85, everyone knew who he was. His name and face was all over every newspaper. He was walking around LA. These two elderly women pointed at him and said, El Matador, which means the killer in Spanish. He started to run. More people saw him, and then the whole community started to chase him. They were able to get him, and then he was arrested. While on trial, he would blurt, obscenities, hail Satan, draw a pentagram on his hand. And in 89, September 20th of 89, he was convicted of 13 murders, and then numerous, 5 attempted murders, 11 or 14 charges of burglary, all kinds of stuff. And he was sentenced to death. California has the gas chamber, but he never made it there. He died June 7th of 2013 due to complications of B-cell lymphoma. And I do remember the day he died. I remember where I was. I was working. I saw it on Facebook. I was trying to be edgy, so I made a rest in peace post to him. But this also focuses, the book does too. And highly recommend this book too, by the way. This is considered the definitive Night Stalker work. Which, aside from that, he's on the cover of these documentaries. I pulled this. It's one of 24 encyclopedic books because he's on the cover. This piece of shit. Forgot what I was saying right before that. Oh, yeah. So, the movie does play on the whole groupie, Ramirez groupie aspect of his life because, both in trial and while in prison, he got a ton of groupies. Women thought he was hot. A lot of people don't know if it's the whole bad boy image or the fact that it's someone famous or that whole kind of tiptoeing along the line and sort of flirting with danger, but there's no real danger because they're in chains behind bars. There's more reward than risk, I guess. Or some women just like to marry inmates because they're married, they have someone, but they're not going anywhere. And it kind of plays off the Kit character kind of being like a closeted Ramirez groupie. But in any case, the performances in the film are all well done. Uh, Especially Lou Diamond Phillips. I will say he is part Cherokee, so he kind of has a Native American accent, which does come through a lot more rather than a Hispanic accent. Not that that gets in the way; it's just something I noticed. Which this movie didn't give a damn about accents, but it if there was some sort of Hispanic accent, I think Lou Diamond Phillips would have been almost uncanny as a 53-year-old Richard. But 12-year-old and high school Richard is very well done and looks just like 24, 25 Richard. That actor is scary how much he looks like him. So, it says he suffered from a concussion at 5, climbing a bookshelf to get to a radio, which is true. I think it was actually a dresser, but that was just one of numerous concussions that he had. He actually almost died numerous times before he was 6. That caused some sort of frontal lobe damage on top of the epilepsy that he was later diagnosed with, which they think the trigger for that was when Mike killed his wife in front of him. Says he met his wife, Doreen Leoy, after writing him. She attended his trial every day, thought he was innocent, thought he was a victim of the system. And then he proposed in 88. They got married in 96. So he mentions that. Says his cousin Mike taught him about stealth and how to kill the most efficient way, like across the throat, which is true. His cousin Mike did teach him about stealth, how to not be seen in the dark, stuff like that. And like I said, a lot of the stuff that they touch on background-wise is accurate. A lot of stuff they show, flashbacks, is accurate. They do mention, I think the only victim they mention by name is Carol Kyle, who's the 42-year-old with the 11-year-old son, that he undid the handcuffs so the son could lead him around the house, show him the valuables, raped Carol repeatedly, then cuffed them back together, then he fled. They both survived. Because the whole idea is that the character of Kit comes from that neighborhood where Carol was. And it shows her as a teen following the Night Stalker headlines and news. You see her go from like this sort of Matilda dressed girl to wearing like the band Pentagram shirts, which we do get a Pentagram song, and I thought that was pretty cool. We see her becoming the rebellious teen because of her touchy stepdad. And her whole story is she's actually from Texas, or she has a client in Texas that's pretty much getting ready to be executed for a murder in 1978 of an Asian woman and her son. She thinks that they were actually Night Stalker victims, so she's trying to get him to confess so she can clear this guy's name before he gets executed. That's the crux of the story. Now, of course, that never happened. I will say right off the bat, even the murder that she's looking into, 1978, that never happened. He never killed anyone at the motel because, no, that's what she says, that they were killed at the motel that you used to work at, which is why I think you did it. Now, so no, that never happened. That is one of probably the biggest liberty that this movie takes. And yes, he does admit to it at the end, which, no. However, there is a part when she asks about the first victim, and he says, "Oh, that old lady." She says, "No, no, the first victim," and he just kind of stares at her. Which he did have prior victims to the was prior to the Night Stalker victims, which I believe it was a 6-year-old girl broke into the basement apartment, did a lot of things to her, and killed her. And that was technically his first victim. I think that was 84. That was 84. So that's one of the big liberties that it takes. Is this prior murder that was never attributed to him? That murder was attributed to him in 2009. So it might just be a fictionalized version of that case, but otherwise, didn't really happen. And it is like Silence of the Lambs because they even do the whole quid pro quo thing. They don't word it like that, but he wants to know about her, so she asks some stuff, then he asks her. He does talk a lot about Satan, and even tells her at one point not to wear the gold watch because that's God's metal. Um, Shows he started stealing in high school, which was true. Uh, does show working at the motel. It shows the first time he tried to assault a woman, but then it cuts back and he says, but then her husband came in, beat the crap out of me. She asked something about getting in trouble. He says no, they left town before, without pressing charges. They were going to, but they didn't want to relive it in court, so he was able to get away with it. He also attacked 2 kids in the elevator of that motel. It doesn't really mention that at all. And from then on, I mean, it shows him in high school stealing, like breaking into houses to steal, shows the motel. Other than that, it doesn't really show a whole lot. And those are the highlights of the film because the guy looks so much like young Richard. But I mean, Lou Diamond Phillips does a good job, and it does go very Hollywood because throughout the film we see him coughing, so we know he has some form of cancer. She gets a phone call saying that he's in the hospital. She goes, and he's finally giving the confession she needs, just as the phone is dying. And she says, I need you to state your name and the date. He struggles with the date. Then she says, June 7th, 2013. I'm like, Right as he's wrapping up his confession that she needs, the phone is dying, he's dying, and, it goes very Hollywood. But, I don't really mind that because really the only thing they're fabricating or making fictional is the interview itself and the whole thing about the murder in 1978. But everything else, it treats it fairly factual. And it's the same thing I said about the Efron Bundy film, which, yes, that is a good movie. That is well made. It is very well acted. I know it's not about the murders, which is frustrating because at the end, when you finally see him in a flashback hitting one of his victims with a crowbar, dragging her into the woods, wearing clothes that looks just like Bundy, and with how much he looks like Bundy, and the way it's done, it's like the best that we've seen. So it kind of makes you think, oh, well, what if the whole movie was that way? It is kind of like that with this. The scenes that take place in the 80s, you kind of think, he looks so much like him, and this is so well done. Why can't the whole movie be this instead of this Silence of the Lambs inspired, sort of fictionalized, romanticized interview? But if he was played by anybody else but Lou Diamond Phillips and his performance wasn't as good, then I would say that, yeah, this was a lost cause. It was a missed opportunity. But he does carry that part of the film. Diamond Phillips does. I do wish there was more. Now, I've said before, films like this will separate the face value, surface level true crime fans than the ones that really want to learn stuff. But where all of this is just Silence of the Lambs fictional stuff, and the only other Night Stalker stuff we have is crap like this, that when we see the very well done flashbacks, you kind of can't help but think, I wish the whole movie was this. I do love the sequence when the whole community's chasing him. I thought that was very well done. So yeah, it does get Hollywood to the point of being silly towards the end, but I thought this was a well-made movie. Now, yes, it is based on the best book on him. I mean, it's this thick. They definitely could have done like a Netflix Dahmer series based on him with that same actor. That would have been incredible. I would have loved that. It does look like a TV movie. It does look like a Lifetime TV movie. Not so much in the flashbacks. In the flashbacks, it looks well done. It might have the same quality as, say, like the Netflix Dahmer series, but like the scenes during their interviews or just with Kit, it looks like a Lifetime movie. And of course, since it is Lifetime, it has to do the romanticization that like all the 50 Shades reading soccer moms want to see. Ones that probably thought he was hot and cried when he died. You all know soccer moms, but if they were ever faced with someone with that kind of darkness, they'd probably shit themselves. But anyway, yeah, it's not quite what I thought it was going to be. I knew it was going to have some fictitious angle, but I didn't know it was going to be this much of the movie. But in any case, I mean, it's not hard to beat this stinking turd, but I really was impressed by Lou Diamond Phillips' performance and all the flashbacks. The flashbacks was really making me think, okay, this, just with these alone, is the best Night Stalker film that I've seen. Now, I do still have the one from 2002, which is also on YouTube. I think that's going to be more in line with that film than it is this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if I walk away saying this is the best film about Richard Ramirez, even though it's not one you should watch to really get the story. It's more of this fictitious interview with flashback tidbits. The more tidbits than anything, but enough kind of bullet points to get the main gist of his story. But still a well-made TV movie, especially for a Lifetime film. So I got a handful more to get to. I'm going to be doing different killers. Again, I only did this one as a palate cleanser because of the Uwe Lamel film. I'm not sure which one I'll do next. We'll see. But I've got plenty, so stay tuned for those, and thank you for watching.